Hello and welcome, relevant listeners, to Field Notes by Relevant, our audio series where the relevant team shares honest, in the moment reflections from our everyday work. My name is Elise, and today I'm joined by Stefan, our programs lead based in Belgrade, Serbia. Stefan, you're celebrating 6 years at Relevant, and you also just reached the milestone of delivering 50 capacity building programs. Congratulations. I thought
Thank
we
you.
could take the time in the next few minutes to talk about your lessons learned on capacity building. Welcome, Stefan.
Thank you, Elise. It's very nice to be here.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Capacity building. I think it can mean many things, and just to provide some context, when we talk about it at Relevant, what do we actually mean to help our listeners understand what we mean when we say capacity building?
hmm hmm Capacity building is, I believe, strengthening people's ability to do something they couldn't do before. And it's more about the judgment, skills, and the confidence. So, how it's different from just saying training. I think training is more specific and vocational and less divergent in the path of people after the training, right? So when you train people to do something, it's usually very specific and you have a very specific output that you expect. And then with capacity building, it's more about asking, okay, how do I set up this individual for a successful future in whatever they will do? And it usually diverges a lot. So our capacity building in Relevant, it's much tied to entrepreneurship in the
Mhm.
impact space. So we work with entrepreneurs in all kinds of geographies, sectors, and stages. So it's very much different than training because they are also a very diverse crowd. Yes. Does this address your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you, Stefan. Now I wanted to talk a little bit more about you. Now that you've reached the milestone of delivering 50 capacity building programs, how has your perception of capacity building evolved from year one to today?
I think in the beginning, I was very tied to the curriculum of any program that I was delivering. And today I'm much focused on outcome because I think that outcome is the essence of capacity building. It's people being there live or in person or online, but it's like a live interaction. And that's
Hmm.
the core of capacity building. So let me give an example. So before I would be, for example, when we would do a capacity building program that includes financial planning, strengthening skills. I would be focused on covering all the checkboxes, right? So let's do a scenario analysis and what this means, and covering every bit of examples for unit economics, right? In the beginning. And now I'm more aware that it's about active listening and about uh, what will change in the perception of the entrepreneurs. So basically, today I would actually listen more to what are their specific needs and what are their current understanding of finances. And I would focus on bringing that to the next level in the context of what they need in order to grow. And how it will, of course, affect their own strategy. So the output is always a financial plan, but what the outcome is different from person to person. And sometimes it's about strategy. Sometimes they want to be investment ready to raise for the next cycle. Then sometimes it's about figuring out the unit economics and going to market for the first time. So it's a very different thing for each of them, and it's all about where they are. So if I would have to summarize it, I would say we meet you where you are as in capacity building, and that is the essence.
Okay. I think what's interesting about Relevant is, right, we're present in Europe and in East Africa. And how do you think that Relevant's organizational framing of capacity building evolved over time and over context? And how do we employ it today within our mission?
hmm So I think that in the beginning, it was one of our three business lines, and today we don't see capacity building as a business line. So today we see a capacity building as means to an end, And we have been always empowering entrepreneurs through different formats and program. And this will forever be a part of our mission. But today we don't see it as a separate business line. We see it as a means to an end for our two main pillars of business, which is mobilizing capital for the blind spots of markets. And then on the other side, building ventures that should exist but don't. And in both of these, in different formats, in different contexts, we use and employ capacity building as a tool to do this. And I also personally believe that it makes a lot of sense to use it as a means to an end, because I think that the time frame between capacity building and a significant impact and change in reality is much shorter when you tie it to, a significant support in venture building or with pair it with mobilizing capital, so providing access to financial and non-financial resources. So yeah, that's I think like a big shift that happened in the last 6 years for us.
Okay. Now, if we talk a bit more in practice, what does capacity building actually look like in our programs today?
So today we have program structures that allow us to basically collect these needs of entrepreneurs as we go. So in the beginning, so it is structured in a way that in the beginning we do most of the theoretical things, if any, in the first session. Of course, it's a several weeks of programs. So in the first weeks, we get the theoretical things out of the way and the foundations, and then in each week, as we progress through the program, it's always designed in a way that we progressively collect the needs and adapt the program using the tools and the modules that we have. Even if we talk about financial planning and business planning, it's very different if we have a capacity building program for recycling ventures in northern Uganda, and then a carbon farming startups in Central Europe. So it's always adapted to where they currently are, and it's always structured in a way that we collect these needs as we go. And the first session is very close in terms of like the structure, but the last three sessions are almost entirely flexible to where they currently are and what are the needs. And it's mostly tied to, okay, finishing up what we started during the program. So yes, it's tied to specific outputs, but outputs are just a means to an end to shift perspectives and collect learnings. And it's more of a creative process, and it happens between us and entrepreneurs in exchange as we go.
Since you've had the opportunity of giving capacity building programs both in Europe and in East Africa, do you have any examples of how, they are different, but both very important in their context?
So I think that sometimes if I compare different entrepreneurs, sometimes we need to figure out the unit economics and then how the unit economics are tied to their long-term strategy, right? Sometimes they don't have it figured out, and this creates challenges with the business model, both with communicating the business model to investors, for example, but also it creates financial challenges long term. So for, some of them are more in the incubation stage, right? And you have to do the work there, right? And to provide genuine feedback and handle it with care. And then on the other side, sometimes you have a very like investment ready ventures that already have like an investable business as well, already in the revenue phase, and they have challenges actually with financial management, right? So how do we raise a good portfolio of financing in order to bridge the next period with all the capital expenditure that we will have? So it also ties in different so we have different phases and we have different sectors which bring different context in how we model out the financial plan. But so it's a very pretty much like a very vast landscape in what it can be. But I would say that sometimes they have a very good understanding. They just need some external perspective, and they need to see it on sheets because they were keeping everything in their heads. And I think that this is transformative for both the ones that are doing the financial plan for the first time, but for the ones that are doing it for the 10th time, the simplification is the value that's on the table, right? They don't have this super, like, 20 sheets financial plan. We actually simplify to have like a bottom-up financial plan that only has like several interconnected bottom-up sheets. And this brings clarity, and it simplifies the way that they also communicate it, and it simplifies their goal, their strategy for the next 3 or 6 months.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Now, if we look again, from how it was at the beginning and now, after 6 years of running programs, what are the three or four biggest lessons that you've learned about what makes capacity building actually effective?
Yes, I think what makes capacity building effective in all programs and in all industries is togetherness. I think putting people that want to grow in the same room is a big non-financial asset. And it's not only about the instructors and the coaches that are there that are moderating the capacity building process, but it's about being there together and learning from each other. I also learn a lot from every program that I deliver from the entrepreneurs. And I believe that having people there together is very important. And I think it should be a part of the program design. And I also see this as a big transformation. Different accelerators do it. And wherever I see it, it's either like, okay, we're including these serial entrepreneurs as coaches, and then you have like your own little advisory board from day one, or it's an open stage and everybody openly discuss their challenges, and other entrepreneurs come in and discuss how it reflects to their case, and they also share their experiences. So I see this kind of like a participatory or peer-to-peer learning formats emerging, and I think it's really important to put them into practice and to think about this ahead when we structure things. And I think before it wasn't done as much, but I see progressively that this is the case. And yeah, I think it's really important. So that's, I think, would be like the first thing. The second thing is just what's really like important is that we allow entrepreneurs to start working today, right? So we shouldn't overschedule the sessions. So it should be span across, the time frame of the program should be long enough, so they have like the time to actually apply the learnings and to get the most out of the coachings. And I would always say that the program should be designed in a way that it has like a bias for action. And I think that this bias for action is crucial because sometimes inertia holds us in this false hope that we will eliminate uncertainty, and that is almost never the case. So in practice, what I always see is that entrepreneurs that start doing their financial plans, start working on their go-to-market strategy, posting the first, campaign online or whatever their sales channels is, that they already have results by the end of the program, right? So it's do anything today, right? Like any small thing today is better than postponing it for tomorrow. And I think that programs should be designed in this way to have like a bias for action. And I never see like the results missing for the ones that were putting the effort. So of course, I think it's about failing, but it's actually about never failing, right? It's always about learning from that. So I think that this bias for action is very important. So that I think would be the second thing. Then the third thing is, and this is personally very important for me, is kindness and vulnerability. I think that these two tie together, right? Because you can't be vulnerable sometimes if there's no kindness that will meet that vulnerability, And it's also like the other way around. And I think that this is important for entrepreneurs specifically because entrepreneurship in reality is very messy. So it comes with a lot of challenges. And if we don't create this safe space, and of course, you can't design a program around vulnerability, something that you approach the program with vulnerability as a human, as an instructor, someone that moderates the program, right? So I think it should come from the people that are delivering the program, and I really tend to do this because um, I think that if you are in a position to be an instructor, you should also feel free to actually say when you actually don't understand things, when you need to think more about things, where you don't know about things, but you want to research and you want to contribute to that specific entrepreneurs. And I think that it's also the other way around, that when they express their vulnerability, they're actually normalizing this environment that is a safe space for them to learn and exchange experiences. Because when one entrepreneur comes in and says, okay, I really have this challenge and I'm not sure what to do with this, it usually is that there is at least two other people in the room that also have the same challenge. And there is a lot of learnings, and maybe there's like a fourth person that already had this challenge in the past and they resolved it. And there's this like experience sharing that's I think is very crucial. And at the end of the day, we're all humans, and if there is not this like safe space, I don't think that people will ask as many questions, and I don't feel that they would be as comfortable as to reach out. I also think on the other side there is this like a um, you know, shiny culture, at least on the PR level of in entrepreneurship in general, right? So let me just give an example. Usually on LinkedIn, you would see that like a venture raised in 2 weeks after they started raising money, right? But in reality, when you talk with founders, it's actually they've been developing a relationship with investors for the last 6 months. So it's actually meeting them, sending follow-up emails, going to different networking events. So in reality, it's different because you are just capitalizing on non-financial assets, so on your network, right? But sometimes we have, especially in the beginning, in the incubation phase, I think that entrepreneurs sometimes have um, wrong perceptions of things because there is a lot of PR about how things should be done, and they're always like shiny and come with a lot of confidence. And sometimes we don't have confidence, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. So I would say that vulnerability and kindness is the third, and I do tend to apply it. I mean, now the question is, how do you actually apply it in capacity building? And I try to always have this, radical candor approach where I genuinely come with to provide feedback with honesty, but I never do that before I think about, okay, why do I care about this, right? And I always come with empathy and honesty. And if those two are not combined, it does affect on how it is taken to the on the other side. So I think that that would be my third thing. And maybe if, fourth thing, maybe this is not like a deep principle, but an important reframing that I think always helps is forming hypotheses and going against them in entrepreneurship is the best way is the best approach when you don't know how to take next steps. So to give an example, this is usually a case with go-to-market strategy, right? When you're in, this for acceleration phase ventures, go-to-market, I think, is something that they still need to groove into. And I always say, okay, take the approach of forming a hypothesis about, your ideal customer profile, about where they are, about which channels are using, make two and go against them, and that's already provides like a format for creative thinking, and people always come up with something that's also actionable. So I think that would be my learning so far.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for all of those insights. I have one final question, if that's okay. If there's one key insight about capacity building that you wish organizations would understand more, what would it be?
I think that function dictates form, and this applies to capacity building as well. Always start with purpose and start with why. Like, why are we doing this capacity building programs? Which stage, which sector, and which challenges these people have? And I think that structure always helps. So a good preparation is always very important. And I think that a lot of work that's tied to delivering a good program happens before the program. So I think that the one is just as important as the other. And I think that for good outcomes, we need to really collect these needs, especially like I previously said when I was talking that this is crucial during the program, right? To active listening and to meet people where they are. I think that this even needs to be systemically applied in program design as well.
Well, thank you very much, Stefan, for taking the time to talk to me about this and for our listeners for listening in. I think it was a nice sort of way of looking back at the last 6 years and going through your learnings and the company's learnings. And yeah, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Elise.